All right, good morning, agents. This is Kevin Long. I'm the Director of Training and Marketing here at Alta Realty Group. And today we're going to be joined by Jordan Phillips, who will give us a rundown on all of the new stuff going on with 1031 exchanges. So this will be a great informative webinar and another way that you can provide value to your clients by bringing them some great information. So really glad to have Jordan on the line with us today, and bring him on after we have Cameron Alley from Clearview Mortgage join us as well. Good morning, Cameron. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Kevin?
Fantastic. And let me also bring Bill Seitz, our corporate broker, on the line as well. Good morning, Bill. How are you today?
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Cameron.
All right. And agents, welcome. Always great to have everybody on the line. I see a lot of new faces on the webinar today, which is great. Welcome. Glad to have you here. And of course, all of our regulars that are always here. So glad to see all of you guys as well. So Cameron, what is happening out there in mortgage land today?
Could you promote me to panelist real quick so I can share my screen? There we go. All right, I am back. Can you guys see?
Absolutely.
All right, awesome.
Cameron.
Perfect. So got a quick little mortgage update for you guys today. As you can see, the 10-year last time I was on, I think was 2 weeks ago, we were sitting at 3.4. So we're sitting at 3.8 right now. What kind of caused that was obviously the new inflation report that came out, which I'm going to go over a little bit. But I did want to show you guys kind of the trends. That's what I always kind of try to do. If we look at the 3-month here, you can see obviously it's everything is on a trend right now, just like kind of like if anyone's ever bought and sold stocks right now, a lot of people watch charts, right? Because it kind of tells you what's going to happen next. So as we see right now, obviously we're at a higher trend. I do expect for this to come back down, but that kind of explains the importance of timing your lock with your clients, because a lot of times that can make or break a deal. For example, if we look at the rates right now, last time I was on 2 weeks ago, we were sitting at 5.99. Right now we're sitting at just really a week and a half of change, and we're sitting at almost 6.8. So rates fluctuate right now with the way that the market is and how volatile it is. Rates are fluctuating almost a point within a week or two span. So for example, if I was looking at this chart, right, and we just got someone into escrow, there's no way that I'd be locking them at this point. I'd be waiting maybe till next week to see what happens, right? Or I'd be watching what reports are coming out to kind of gauge what I think bonds are going to do next. But overall, just a big thing. Basically, the lesson out of this is that timing your locks is a huge deal, and that's why it's important to work with somebody who kind of knows what's going on, so that they can hopefully not kill your deal, because I'm sure that that's happening a lot in mortgage land right now. But as far as rates, I already kind of showed you guys that, but right now, no points. We're sitting at about 6.8. So quite a big increase from about a week and a half ago. But as I said, take it with a grain of salt, because I do kind of expect for next week for this to kind of change up again and for us to get more into this range. So that's what we're hoping for anyway. So the inflation report that came out was can you guys hear me still?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. My headphones beeped, so I thought I lost you. So inflation report that came out in January, inflation increased another 0.5%. They're expecting for it to come down about 1%. So obviously that's why we're seeing an increase in bond. So I do expect, like I said, for that to be kind of temporary, but basically that is 0.5 point increase when they were expecting a 1 point decrease. That's kind of a big deal. But there's basically like 3 things that I'm getting out of this inflation report. I read pretty much the whole thing this morning, and the 3 things that I see is that obviously the Fed's plan as far as increasing rates is not necessarily working to stop inflation. It's working for housing, because obviously we don't see housing values going up right now, but they also haven't come down as much as we expected. So obviously they're going to end up, I think, by summer probably switching up their plan. We'll see what happens. Another thing that I'm seeing is obviously transportation regulations are one of the main causes. These are like regulations that the federal or state governments are adding to our supply chain. So that's like, for example, in the state of California, they're like, okay, well, you have to have this certain type of truck to pick up products and send it across the country, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully we'll see some action on that, because I think that that is one of the huge things that are causing inflation. And all this stuff, even though it sounds like it's not related to the housing market or real estate or mortgages at all, it's 100% what's causing all this. And then obviously third is definitely the cost of energy. So hopefully we'll see that come down, especially natural gas, because it's the highest that it's ever been. I think it was 100% increase national average over the last year. And in California, where we all are, it was like 166% increase. So hopefully we'll start seeing that come down. I saw something from SDG&E, which is in San Diego, that said it was, but they always send that stuff. So hopefully it'll be true this time. And then obviously another reason bonds are increasing is the jobs report that just came out. I wanted to touch on this jobs report real quick, because tech giants have laid off like almost 100,000 employees since the beginning of 2023. So lots of layoffs in that sector right now, which you think would lead to a bad jobs report. But basically in January, we had 500,000 new jobs on the job report that came out, I think it was 4 days ago. But when I was looking through this job report, I saw of the 500,000 jobs that were added, 29% of them were second jobs, which is best in history. So as things kind of, how things work with bonds and how things work on Wall Street is they kind of push everything down the road, right? Like even when there's a problem, obviously you're not going to necessarily see it because they want consumer confidence to be high, right? But I do expect by summertime for bonds to really dip, I think, to the percent range. Hopefully, cross our fingers. Hopefully we get one good inflation report, and that'll bring rates comfortably back into the high 5 region. But we'll see what happens. I don't have a crystal ball necessarily, but that's kind of what's going on in mortgage land today. As always, if you guys have questions or you want to see what's going on as far as rates for your clients, one of the things that we'll try and do is give them, not necessarily, like I said, like I'm not going to tell your client, like let's say we spoke today and we're like, okay, our rates are at 6.88. Obviously, there's no reason why we would lock them in at that when we look at this chart and we see the volatility. So once again, just keep in mind, it's really important when you have someone, especially who you've pre-qualified and they've been out looking for a month or even a week, a lot changes. So always stay in touch with whoever you're working with. If you're working with us, which we would love for you to do, obviously always, call me, call Bill, whoever you're working with, and we'll try to give you an update and put your buyers in the best position possible. Because right now it requires a lot of hands-on work to get your client the best mortgage that you possibly can, and make sure that they can stay in escrow. So that's pretty much all I have, unless Bill wants to add anything today.
No, that was an amazing little summary there, Cameron, always full of lots of information. One thing I will add though to what you said about just staying like current with the pre-approval and stuff. Additionally, if the market moves against us, the benefit of using Clearview is we will make the deal work, even if we have to get really thin on our side. We're not going to let you lose the deal if we absolutely don't have to. And we will, we're willing to work in that capacity because we are all a team here and we want to make sure that we keep deals and not lose deals. And so we do have a little more flexibility over here with the pricing and the ability to make things work. So
100%. It really comes down to creativity and getting creative and good timing. And for us, even if we have to cut a deal a little bit, we're perfectly fine with it because it leads to more referrals for you guys, leads to more referrals to us. And, when rates do adjust, we know we're going to get the refi. So, it's not about one deal. It's about making you guys successful. And if you guys are all successful, then we're going to be successful. So that's kind of the key.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the name of the game here at Alta Realty Group. So thank you so much, Cameron. And I would argue that you might, we've been listening to you for a long time. I think you do have a crystal ball.
I
And
just,
you're not
I,
telling us, you're
I
just kind of like, I got one, but I'm just not gonna say
I read too much. That's
it.
don't read this stuff as much as just get it from me, because I'll tell you what, it's not necessarily all roses and daisies all the time.
I guarantee not. No, we really appreciate that, Cameron. You always bring a lot of value to the team. And yeah, I'm always looking forward to your updates because they are very, very important.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Well, without further ado, we're going to bring Jordan Phillips on the line. And Jordan is our go-to person for 1031 exchanges. And so good morning, Jordan. How are you today?
Morning, Kevin. I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. And I think even before we get into your presentation, Bill Seitz, I think you have a quick little anecdote about you using Jordan.
Yeah. Good morning, Jordan. How are you today?
Morning. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, we're always super happy to bring you on from time to time here, get everyone kind of up to speed with the 1031 exchange world. It's it's a whole different animal, and I always learn quite a bit listening to you as you come on and kind of re-educate us, get us basically it's kind of like a CPR class. You got to do it once or twice a year to stay current, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I referred a client of mine, Darren Brillhart, who I'm sure you remember there,
Yep.
Jordan, and he was selling an investment property here in Costa Mesa, and went up and bought out in the Coachella Valley. And Jordan and his team did an amazing job, and Darren was so happy with you guys' just the seamlessness of the process. So want to let everyone know that I personally have referred Jordan, and he did an amazing job. So just wanted to share that with the team and with the company here. So if they have people they can send your way, I want to make sure that they understand that the broker's done it as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So I'm going to pull up real quick a PowerPoint. Let me see if I can share this screen.
Looking good, Jordan.
Looking good? Let me see.
Yep.
Okay. Me from the beginning. Okay. Everyone can see the 1031 PowerPoint?
Yeah, looks
okay, cool.
Crystal clear, buddy.
Perfect. All right, everybody, how's it going? I'm Jordan Phillips with IPX 1031. Just wanted to kind of drop in, provide a quick update on what we are seeing in the 1031 exchange market, and give you a refresher on the actual 1031 exchange guidelines, because 1031 exchange activity, while it's not what it was certainly in 2021 and the first half of 2022, it's still at a pretty active level, especially here in Southern California. And that's because a couple of reasons. A lot of our clients still have a high level of appreciation in their property, and California is subject to very high tax rates. So while other parts of the country exchange activity has slowed down more significantly, Southern California is still a very high volume for 1031 exchanges. So as far as volume is concerned, we are probably back at 2018, 2019 levels, which historically speaking are pretty good. So there's a good chance that this year, if you have a client who is thinking about selling their investment property, they're probably going to want to explore doing a 1031 exchange. And the first reason why they're going to want to explore doing a 1031 exchange are because of the potential tax hit. So anytime you're selling investment real estate and you want to defer paying your long-term capital gains taxes, you can do what's called a 1031 exchange. And a 1031 exchange allows you to defer paying the following taxes. So if you were just to say, hey, look, I'm going to sell this property, cash out, bite the bullet, you're going to be essentially subject to 4 taxes. The first is long-term federal capital gains, which is going to be either 15 or 20%. And that depends on which taxable income bracket you're in. Typically speaking, the gain from the sale of the real estate itself will probably push you into the 20% tax bracket. So right off the bat, you're going to probably pay 20% of the gain to the federal government, Like I said, we live in the great state of California. I love it. But the state of California knows people are going to, want to live in California, so they're going to take advantage of that by implementing the highest level of state income tax of anyone in the country. So most of our clients at the state level are going to give away another 9 to 13.3% of their gain to the state of California. So right off the bat, a lot of our clients would be looking at a third of their gain going to taxes. And then there's also 2 additional taxes that not everyone knows about. The first is what's called the net investment income tax. So basically, if you have an adjusted gross income of over 250, if you file jointly, you're going to give another 3.8% of the gain to the federal government. And then the sneaky tax is what's called depreciation recapture. So basically, anytime you own investment real estate, you get to depreciate the asset, which is a very, very beneficial while you own the real estate. But when you go to sell that property, all that depreciation that you took is going to be taxed at a flat rate of 25% to the federal government. So basically, blending all these rates together, most of our clients who just sell cash out are going to be typically somewhere in the high 20s to mid 30s% as far as their tax rate is concerned. So that's oftentimes when I get the phone call saying, oh crap, I don't really want to have to fork over all that cash. I heard about a 1031 exchange. Give me some of the details. So at the end of the day, doing a 1031 exchange, it's not really that overly complicated. I mean, you're basically just selling and buying investment real estate. The IRS does impose certain guidelines. The first being is that you do need to sell and buy investment real estate or real estate used in a business. But other than that, the property type doesn't matter, right? So a lot of people think, oh, I'm selling a single family rental. If I want to do a 1031 exchange, I got to go out and buy another single family rental. Not necessarily the case. You can go out and buy another single family rental, but you could buy a duplex, a triplex. You can go out and buy commercial real estate, vacant land, windmills, billboards, gas, oil, mineral rights, boat docks. I had a client buy a floating home, in Northern California. That qualifies. DSTs are pretty popular for clients who want to go passive. So, the definition of real estate itself is broad. So the property type doesn't matter. And neither does the actual location of the property. So as you can imagine, we have a lot of California clients who are selling California real estate and buying pretty much any other state other than California. So we see a lot of people going to Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Arizona, Nevada. So I mean, you're free to cross state lines. So that's really why people do a 1031 exchange at the end of the day. It's not because they want to, sell and not pay taxes, right? If they didn't want to pay any capital gains taxes, they would just, hold the property, not cash out, and just keep on, keeping on with that current property. But doing a 1031 exchange allows you to sit down, with your clients who own investment real estate and say, hey, look, maybe property A, B, C that you own, maybe they're not cash flowing like you would like or appreciating like you would like. Let's go out, sell this property and put you into a better asset, right? So clients utilize exchanges for a multitude of non-tax reasons. A lot of times, when they're going out of state, California real estate is relatively expensive. So you can sell California real estate, go buy out of state, and buy multiple properties and diversify. So diversification is popular. Consolidation on the flip side, we see it a lot with our older clients, right? Maybe they own 4 or 5 investment properties. They're tired of chasing around tenants all over, different cities and things like that. You can, consolidate a couple of properties and buy one larger asset, easier to manage type of property. Exchanging properties closer to home, that comes up a lot. Or, exchanging a property maybe that they want to buy next to their kids and moving closer to family, that comes up significantly. And also a lot of our clients utilize 1031 exchanges for estate planning purposes. So basically, a 1031 exchange is a tax deferral mechanism. So the only way to avoid paying your capital gains taxes is by, I hate to say it, dying, right? So if you own a real estate, you exchange, never cash out, you would actually never end up paying your capital gains taxes. So a lot of our clients take advantage of what's called swap until you drop. And you basically exchange, never sell the property. Once that property gets passed on to their heirs, all of their capital gains taxes get wiped out upon death. So pretty powerful tool. So yeah, if you have clients own real estate, it might be good to sit down with them, once a year, every 6 months, analyze their portfolio, see if maybe you can help them sell property, go out, maybe help them buy another property on the flip side to improve their real estate portfolio. So in a 1031 exchange, also what you cannot do, it's flexible on what property types you can buy, but what you cannot do is buy like a primary residence, a second home, or a house that you plan on flipping, right? So property which you intend to sell doesn't qualify for the exchange. But what we see a lot of our clients doing is buying their future primary residence. So basically, if you do a 1031 exchange, you buy a property, if you hold it as an investment for 2 full years, after 2 years, you are free to use that property however you would like. So if you do a 1031 exchange, you say, hey, look, I eventually want to move into this property, you can, but you would have to wait 2 full years, before converting it into a primary residence. So back in 2008, the IRS came out with a revenue procedure which outlines this. They say after 2 years, if you move in, it's not going to trigger any sort of taxable event, and they can no longer challenge the validity of the exchange. So outright buying your primary residence or a second home doesn't qualify for an exchange, but if you can hold it for 2 years prior to converting it, it will be able to be converted into a personal property. So that's something that we are seeing come up, pretty frequently. Moving right along. So as we said, there's a couple of guidelines in doing a 1031 exchange. The IRS does have to be kind of a pain in the backside somehow. So they do implement very strict timelines when doing a 1031 exchange. So basically, if you're doing an exchange where you sell first, buy second, the clock for the exchange will start once the sale property closes escrow. So from the closing of the sale, your client will then have 45 calendar days to identify a potential replacement property or properties, and a total of 180 calendar days to actually close. So essentially, the 180 days to close on the purchase property, we don't really ever see that become an issue, other than in certain instances where people are buying new construction that might not be completed in time. So the 180 days to close, not really an issue, but certainly what sometimes is an issue for our clients is the 45 days to identify. So within the first 45 days, they would need to identify, which means provide us with the property address of the potential property or properties that they would ultimately end up purchasing. So there are limitations on how many properties can be identified. So basically, they either can stick to what's called the 3 property rule. So that means that they identify 1, 2, or 3 properties. The total value of the properties doesn't matter. If they want to identify 4 or more properties, they can. but the total value cannot exceed 200% of the value of the property they sold. So for example, if they sell for $1 million and they want to identify 4 or more properties, they can, but the total value could not exceed $2 million in that situation. So they're either limited on the number of properties they identify, 3 or less, or the total value of the properties. There's also one kind of obsolete rule called the 95% rule, which basically says if they identify more than 3 properties and it's more than 200% of the value, they can, but they would need to acquire 95% of what they identified. So that's the only time I ever see that work is if they identify like a portfolio where it's all or nothing. But other than that, it's always going to be either the first of these 2 identification rules. So the only time the IRS allows for extensions are due to either military deployment or due to a federally declared disaster, which interestingly enough, there actually is a federally declared disaster for most of California right now because of the recent winter storms that we've had, believe it or not. So I guess anytime it rains in California, it's such a big deal that we get a disaster relief extension. Just kidding, but we actually did get one, which essentially if you had a client, for example, selling within the next month or so, they would be able to potentially extend their 45-day identification period to May 15th. So if you do have a client who's about to enter into an exchange, there is a potential that they could, get an extension on that 45-day identification period. So pretty rare to fall in a disaster zone, especially in California. But other than that, the IRS is hard and fast when it comes to those timelines. The third requirement, so there's basically 3 major requirements, sell and buy investment real estate, do it within the timelines. And then, basically in order to defer all capital gains taxes, you need to buy real estate, which is equal to or greater than in value to the property you sold. So basically within that, let's say you sell for $1 million after you can deduct, closing costs, commissions, title fees, escrow fees. So let's say after closing cost, you have $1 million of the sales price. You have to go out and buy for $1 million or higher. And within that, you'd have to roll all the cash from the sale into the purchase. And if you had any debt on the sale, you need to replace the value of that debt, either by getting a new loan or infusing extra cash. So like if you sold a property for $1 million, you had $800,000 of cash and a $200,000 loan, you'd have to roll all $800,000 of cash into the next property. And then the loan portion, you could either get another, $200,000 loan, or if you wanted to infuse extra cash, like an extra $200,000, you could do that and buy the property all cash. So we're seeing, as rates start to, rise, we do see clients infusing extra cash into their purchase instead of getting a loan, which that could work as well. If they end up buying less in value, let's say you sell for $1 million and buy something for $900,000, that's what's called a partial 1031 exchange. Only that difference, that $100,000 difference, would be subject to capital gains taxes. So those are the 3 major guidelines. I know we're running short on time. So basically my role, we're what's called a qualified intermediary. So anytime you do a 1031 exchange, what you cannot do is actually touch the funds in between the sale and the subsequent purchase. So the IRS does require that your client engages with a company like ourselves prior to the sale closing. So it's a pretty simple process. We would just have to be connected with the escrow company on the sale. We draft a set of 1031 exchange documents that need to be signed. Nothing else really changes on the sale side, except once the sale closes, those proceeds then come directly to us, where we hold them on your client's behalf until they go out and buy their next property. So just know if your client's doing an exchange, it absolutely has to be set up with someone like ourselves prior to the sale closing. Other than that, not going to change your sale too much. On the purchase, the only thing that really changes is the funds are then coming from us to close on the purchase property. So like I said, not an overly difficult process, so it's nothing to really be terrified about. There are just a couple of main guidelines, but it is always something to definitely throw out to all your clients with investment real estate as a way to basically better their real estate portfolio. So I think we're out of time, but that's really kind of the nuts and bolts of the exchange process. And like I said, anything you guys need, there's my full contact information. Happy to help out with any questions.
Hey, Jordan, I know this is probably a question that comes up with some agents. Maybe you get this time to time, is if a seller is participating in an exchange, is there, or what are the requirements for the other party? That's not necessarily, they're part of the transaction that's going to go to the exchange. Are there any roles that they play in this process?
So as far as like the buyer is concerned on the sale of an exchange property?
Correct.
There's really nothing that the buyer needs to do. So basically in the purchase contract, you're going to want to disclose, seller intends to do a 1031 exchange. So it's disclosed to the buyer. And then we will provide escrow with what's called a notice of assignment, basically notifying all the parties that we are assigning into the position as the seller and handling the 1031 exchange. And escrow will sign off on that and provide a copy to all the parties in the transaction. So as far as like the buyer is concerned, the buyer does not need to sign any documents as it pertains to the exchange. They just need to be disclosed the fact that the seller is doing a 1031 exchange.
Great. Yeah, I know that's a question that comes up from time to time.
For sure, right?
100%. And thanks for covering that. I know that I'm sure you get a lot of questions too about the partial exchange. A lot of people probably have the misconception that it has to be like, same price point or higher. But I'm glad you touched on that partial exchange. I think a lot of people don't realize that. And I know in Darren's case, my client that I sent over to you guys, I know he was like, considering that option too. Okay, well, I could take partial gain and then 1031 the remaining portion. So I think that's a big component to flexibility in this process as well.
Yeah, partial exchange is super common. So it's not an all or nothing proposition. It could be all or something, I guess you could say. And a lot of our clients would like a little bit of liquidity, a little bit of cash from their sale. That's fine. If they could take some cash, just know that any cash that isn't reinvested is going to be subject to taxes.
Right.
And
Kev, do we have any other questions?
Yeah, we do have a couple questions. One from Charles Jensen. He's asking, can I do a DST?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
So the DST is what's called a Delaware statutory trust.
Got it.
So it's a very common investment vehicle. So basically what a DST is you'll have these large institutional owners of real estate called DST sponsors. And what they'll do is they'll take down, very high performing assets. Like, for example, they might go out and buy a shopping center or an apartment building or, some, larger high performing commercial asset. And what they'll do is they will sell out fractional interest in those properties to people doing 1031 exchanges. So for example, instead of buying a shopping center, a lot of our clients don't have funds to buy shopping centers, but they might have enough funds to buy a 1% interest in that shopping center. So you can buy into a DST. Basically, you're buying a fractionalized interest in the property. The DST sponsor professionally manages the property, pays out monthly income based off of the rents received. And it is something that is very common in a 1031 exchange. So clients will utilize DSTs as a way to complete their exchange, right? They might have a little bit of cash left over. They can roll it into that DST. And it's very common for clients who want to go completely passive as well. So they're tired of managing real estate. They'll sell their investment condo and they'll roll it into a DST or a couple of DSTs, and then they go completely, hands off. So that is common as far as a 1031 exchange is concerned.
Well, that's great. That's a great question. And I do have another question from Charles Barnes. He asks, how much does it cost for a client to do a 1031 exchange?
So we keep our fee simple. We charge $1,000. So that covers both the sale and also their first purchase. So if they're selling one property, buying one property, which most of our clients do, it's a flat cost of $1,000.
Perfect. Easy enough. So I don't see any further questions, but Jordan, we really appreciate you coming on. Wilma Nichols had a nice little comment for you. She says, this is the first time I really understood what a 1031 exchange is. Thank you so much. Now I can basically explain it to my client, which is absolutely the point of having Jordan with us. So that's really, really cool.
You got it. I'd be happy to send over this PowerPoint too, if you guys want to, just have it for your records.
That would be phenomenal.
And Kevin, I just to all the agents out there, I just encourage you guys to plug Jordan's contact in your CRM or your phone or your database, because I can guarantee you this conversation will come up for you at some point.
Yep.
And you want to have his information handy. And when this situation came up for me, 9 months ago, and I had to call Kevin, I said, I don't have Jordan's number on my phone. I need to get it. So,
that's right. You did. Huh?
It's in my phone now, and now I have it, and I've used Jordan, like I said earlier. And so you'll want to have his information handy, especially when the opportunity arises.
For sure, he's literally a quiver an arrow in your quiver. So really good stuff. Thanks again, Jordan, for coming on the line, and we really appreciate you helping our agents out.
You got it. Thank you, fellas.
Heck yeah. And so we are going to conclude today with a reminder to please, if you guys have any listings and you're getting ready to open escrow, please use Raquel Bauer from Legacy Escrow. Contact information is on all of the invites to the ARG Wednesday webinars, as well as the replays. And of course, if you guys need help with loans, with any questions with loans, anything like that, please don't hesitate to contact Clearview Mortgage and anybody on the team. So you guys get out there, make it a great day and a great week and a productive week, and we'll see you all on the Wednesday webinar next week. Bye-bye.